evening. At 4:45 this evening, the Pulaski County School Board met in closed session for the discussion of a personnel matter. At this time, if I could have a certification from a board member that all that was discussed in closed session were pertaining to a personnel matter as approved by the Code of Virginia.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we certify that the closed meeting was conducted in accordance with the Code of Virginia as amended, Section 2.2-3712.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Thank you. Again, I want to welcome everybody to our school board meeting this evening. At this time, we will stand and do the pledge. And I believe Ms. Castelluccio, are you there in front of me? If you would lead us in the pledge, please.
I'm pretty loud. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Board members earlier received a copy of the agenda. At this time, are there any corrections, comments related to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda for this evening's meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting as written.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Ms. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden? Yes. Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Brings us to item D on the agenda, and that is ESSER funding, and as well as a public hearing, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief. For that, Dr. Sears, who will be doing that presentation, please?
Mr. Stafford will be discussing this with.
Thank you, Dr. Sears. Mr. Chairman, members of the school board. Dr. Sears, if you could pull up the other document, I think I'll start with the overview first. But as you know, the Pulaski County Public Schools has been the beneficiary of several rounds now, as well as other local governments and school systems of other rounds of federal stimulus money that has that resulted from the pandemic. We had the American Rescue, or the CARES Act, is the original umbrella act where these stimulus packages have been coming from. And so we have received our first last year, our CARES Act award number 1. Then, as we've discussed previously, also our ESSER award number 2. And ESSER is just the act from the CARES Act that is specific to public schools nationwide. ESSER being the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act. And now we're on our round 3 of stimulus funding, which is coming from the American Relief Act. That is actually the largest of these, of the federal stimulus packages. And one of the requirements of this money is that we have a concentrated effort to have engagement with their stakeholders, with the school board, with their administrators, teachers, the public, on how we spend this money. So tonight, I just wanted to give I'll try to make it brief, an overview of what this money means for us. So the key thing on the first slide, I would say, is that the uses of funds are basically like the previous rounds of stimulus, except we are required to spend 20% of this award to address learning loss, and I'll get into that further. Also, the period of performance of this award runs until September 30th of 2024. So for addressing learning loss, we must use 20% of the funds to measure and address the academic impact of lost instructional time on all students through evidence-based interventions, and it mentions all those different things like summer programs, through after-school tutoring, extended school year programs, any of those types of types of activities. Next, within 90 days of receiving an ESSER award, each school division must submit a plan to the state and post it to our website. For us, that is August 1st is our deadline, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this up tonight to meet the timeline. And what this plan does is basically identifies how we're going to spend this round of stimulus money. Next, the next slide talks about stakeholder engagement, which is what we've been doing. We've already had meetings with the cabinet, also a Zoom meeting with principals to discuss ways that we could use this money to benefit our students. Next, I also want to bring up there was a more aggressive requirement to have a plan for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. This was more, I guess, for the school divisions that did not have as much face-to-face instruction as we did. So for us, we were able to actually take care of reopening plan and do the majority of this work from our reopening plan that we did last year. But for other school divisions that may not have returned to in-person learning until late, this was I guess, a bigger piece for them to complete. Again, public comment. Not only does this stimulus act require public comment in developing this plan, but also every 6 months we have to seek and take into account public comment on the ongoing usage of this money. Additional requirements, I guess, in terms of for both plans to be available in languages that parents can understand, made publicly on your website. So the next slide, examples of allowable unit uses, and I'm not going to read all of these, but this kind of conforms to what the previous 2 rounds of ESSER funding have been. So just to, I guess, to bring up how we use this money, bring everyone up to speed. The first round of ESSER money was primarily used for Chromebooks for our students, for the interactive boards for our classrooms to allow our teachers to better be able to teach in person and virtually. Also cleaning supplies and PPE, that kind of thing. The second round of ESSER money, we've been able to allocate more of that for some of the capital projects, the HVAC renovations that we currently have planned. So this third one, of course, is again the larger amount of money. But all of those uses that we previously had for the previous 2 rounds of money are still in place for this round of stimulus money. That's really all I wanted to bring up on the overview. Dr. Sears, do you have anything else you wanted to bring up on the overview?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay. And just for our, I guess, local award, on the second slide, it shows you this is a very much a substantial amount of money in comparison to the previous 2 awards. The ESSER, the first ESSER money we received was about $800,000. That's what we got, really when the pandemic first started. The ESSER 2 round of money that we've been working with so far was $3.6 million, and now this award is $8.1 million, and it's substantial for all of our school divisions and local governing bodies. The next slide just kind of illustrates how the breakdown of how these funds would go. So the required learning loss allocation, if we were to strictly use the 20% rule, that would be about $1.6 million that we would have to use over the next 3 years for programs that would, again, address the learning loss for our students. Would be at summer school programs, virtual summer learning, after-school programs for tutoring, and that kind of thing. The other unallocated portion could also be used for learning loss or other academic or purposes to address academics or mental health, all of the broad uses that it has. But it also can be used for certain capital projects for the school system. As with the ESSER 2 money, there are restrictions. So again, we can't just build a building because we want to use it that way. It does have to be specifically geared towards how we're addressing, the COVID-19 pandemic through uses of these funds. So we've been able to, for instance, the HVAC was a very prime use to show that we can use by putting air conditioning in our gyms and these air-conditioned areas of our buildings, that it's, we're improving airflow. So any of the capital uses we want to do, be it purchasing school buses, and we can, we've reviewed our top 10 capital list, and many of those projects we can use these monies for instance, not only HVAC replacements, but also roof replacements, because we're addressing the environmental health of our students by, having leaky roofs. So we can really address almost all of the projects on our top 10 capital list with use of this money, which again for us is just, it's really historic. As long as I've been here, I've never seen this amount of federal money that we've received that could be used especially to be used toward capital projects. So it's really historic for us and for all school divisions in the state to be able to use this kind of money for our buildings.
Certainly puts us in a better position than we've been in a long time as far as capital projects, no doubt.
Yes, sir. Really the biggest obstacle we're going to have is being able to meet that September 2024 timeline, because as we found out through the band roof, the band room roof replacement, we're basically going to have to, put that out, rebid it, because they can't get the product to be able to reseal the roof. So it'll be challenging, but obviously it's a good problem to have that much money. It's just a matter of meeting the timelines to get these projects completed by that time, by that date. And the meetings I participated in, the conference calls, right now there does not seem to be any willingness, or there's been no information coming from the feds that they're going to change that deadline due to the issues going on nationwide with the supply chain. So perhaps it will happen, but we can't really bank on that. So it's imperative that we get a plan and then start putting it into place as soon as possible.
Okay. Any questions for Chad?
Chris, the 20% that we have to use to improve education, does the purchase of the Chromebooks count in that 20% or not?
Yes, sir, it would. If we show that the Chromebooks are being used, especially if they're being used, we make the case they're being used in after-school programs, being used in the summer for students, yes, they can, that's definitely be used to purchase Chromebooks.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Stack.
Thank you.
At this time, the school board will open a public hearing where citizens can present ideas or concerns regarding the ESSER money, the ESSER funding. At this, the school board will take no action on that at this evening's meeting, but we will listen to any requests or concerns that you have regarding the ESSER funds. We would ask that we would limit all comments to 3 minutes. But at this time, we will open the public hearing and would be more than happy to hear any of your comments or concerns regarding the ESSER funding. Hearing none, we will close public comment. Brings us to the consent agenda. Earlier today, the board received copies of the consent agenda, personnel, changes within the school division, as well as the school activity funds audit. And I would request that we vote on the personnel agenda if we could vote on it separately. I would ask that we would. I have a relative that is being voted on in the personnel agenda this evening. It's needless to say, it's not appropriate that I vote in that situation. So I would ask that in the personnel agenda that we would vote separately on Mackenzie Coleman in the personnel agenda this evening. Are there any other changes or requests regarding the consent agenda? At this time, if we could vote on the employment of Mackenzie Coleman as the rotating substitute for Pulaski County Public Schools Division, if we could vote on that at this time. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we vote on Ms. Coleman at this time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Okay, if we could go ahead and now vote on the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda absent of what we just voted on.
Okay. Is there a second? Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
That brings us to action items. The first action item is the amendment to the superintendent's contract. I will go ahead and read this. The amendment to the superintendent's contract dated this 20th day of June 2021, by and between the Pulaski County, the School Board of Pulaski County, Virginia, and Kevin W. Sears, Division Superintendent of Schools. Whereas paragraph 3, compensation states that the annual salary increase for the superintendent shall equal no less than the average increase approved by the board for instructional personnel for the corresponding fiscal year unless the superintendent has received an unsatisfactory performance evaluation. The annual salary for the superintendent shall be amended to add 5% to the annual salary of $141,846. The amended salary will be $148,938 for the upcoming school year. I will point out that the average salary of the superintendent in the state of Virginia is $166,000. So Dr. Sears' salary is considerably less than the average salary in the state of Virginia for a division of this size. Are there any questions or comments regarding the amendment to the superintendent's contract? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the superintendent contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
That brings us to award for bid for DES dish room renovation. Dr. Sears?
Yes, Mr. Scholl.
I think Ms. Sadler's going to.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. Ms. Sadler?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Sears, and members of the school board. I'd like to present to you this evening our invitation to bid for the replacement of the dishwasher at Dublin Elementary School. The award went to Trimark Strategic Equipment for the amount of $65,184. $65,184.81. I request that you approve this award.
Any questions at this time for Ms. Evans?
I just have one. Is this replacing another original dishwasher?
Yes, ma'am. The dishwasher at Dublin Elementary School was original to the school, and it was just worn out. It was put in approximately 1968. So we've got a good lifespan out of it. Pardon me?
I think we got it.
I think we do.
Any other questions for Ms. Evans? If there's no other questions, is there a motion to award the bid for the Dublin Elementary School dish room renovation to Trimark USA Inc. for the lump sum price of $65,184.81?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bid, that we award the bid for the Dublin Elementary School dish room renovation to Trimark USA for the lump sum, the bargain price of $65,184.81.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Well, if it was all that easy. Thank you. Brings us to our next action item, and that's consider a bid for a Pulaski County Public Schools operation building.
Good evening, Dr. Sears, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would like to put before you tonight the bid for RL Price Construction to build the operations building that we've been discussing at the high school for $1,670,000. I know it's a slightly larger price than we discussed, but the ESSER funds that Mr. Stafford described to you previously give us the opportunity to proceed anyhow.
Freeze up money.
Yes, sir.
Freeze up money. Any questions or comments for Mr. Shaw?
Short of me flipping through all of this right here, is there a clause for completion on time or a price escalation clause in here?
There's no price escalation clause. There are liquidated damages for completion of time.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add to it that approval of this would allow us to take action on the next item, which is to return Pulaski Middle and the ag shop to the county. I know the interested party in developing that property, I don't think is interested if they can't get the ag shop. And if we can't get an operations building, then we would need to reconsider and possibly hang on to the ag shop.
Sure. And it's, Pulaski County has a history of holding on to buildings too long. So yeah, that needs to be done. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Shaw? The motion is to award the bid for Pulaski County, from Pulaski County Public Schools storage facility to RL Price Construction for the lump sum price of $1,670,000. Is there a motion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the bid for the Pulaski County Public Schools, and it says storage facility, but it is an operations building, right? It's not a warehouse.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. It's not a warehouse, which is where you're going to live.
Yes, it will be our home of operations.
Okay, thank you. To RL Price Construction for the lump sum price of $1,670,000.
Is there a second? Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
This brings us to the old Pulaski Middle School property resolution. Dr. Sears?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we were just discussing, the approval of moving forward with constructing the operations building now allows us to act on returning the Pulaski Middle School property to the county, and Mr. Scholl will give us an overview of that.
Yeah, I will turn it over to Samuel Campbell, our attorney, who's been helping us with drafting the resolution and preparing the plans.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell?
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Campbell. I'm the attorney whom you have perhaps unwittingly until now retained to effect the transfer of the Pulaski Middle School's property, or at least most of it, to the Board of Supervisors. There is, I understand, a resolution in your packet for today. I prepared the resolution. It is in accordance with the requirements of statute for transferring surplus and unneeded properties to whomever. In this case, the whomever is the Board of Supervisors. And in this case, it is being not sold, but it is simply being conveyed. It is, there is no remuneration, and thus no public hearing is necessary on this resolution. I've also prepared a deed. I have that with me. We have the survey plats here. They will require your signature, Mr. Hurst, across the board, assuming you adopt a resolution that appoints you to sign it. Okay. And I will be happy to ask him to answer any questions. I will note, as Mr. Sears has previously noted, I don't know whether you have a copy of the plat, or a small, reduced copy of the plat in your packet or not.
Yes.
But the main building, as I would call it, all the land behind it and to the west of it, including the former agricultural or vocational building and some lovely cinder block buildings beside it, are being transferred to the Board of Supervisors. The school board will be retaining the garage facility, 1.131 acres. We have oral approval of the subdivision, which this constitutes, from the Town of Pulaski's subdivision agent, Mr. Deal, and either Mr. Shule or I will take care of getting his signature and that of the town engineer on the plats in the next couple of days.
Any questions at this time for Mr. Campbell?
I don't have a question, I do have a comment that I would like to make for public record. When the school board takes action to turn over a property back to the county, it is no longer the school board responsibility to provide upkeep to that building. So whatever state it may be in, such as Newbern Elementary, it is no longer the school board's responsibility. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other comments?
Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
Mr.
The
Campbell.
conveyance deed that I prepared and submitted to you makes that perfectly clear.
Correct. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Campbell? Mr. Campbell, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
At this time, the board has received copies of the resolution. We've had opportunity for review. If there's no other comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve the resolution to turn Pulaski Middle School and the properties mentioned per resolution back over to the Board of Supervisors, to the county?
Mr. Chairman, given that this is in the Massey District and in my area,
Motion has been made, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the poll to Mr. Scholl here.
Okay.
So
So,
you need to sign.
yes, sir. Thank you. I think that's a day that we look forward to for a long time.
Hopefully we'll be ready for Dublin and all.
Okay, yeah, yes, sir.
Your work is just started.
Brings us to information items. Dr. Sears, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First informational item is the triennial wellness policy, and I'll ask Ms. Sadler to come forward again. Is Ms. Hall presenting this with you?
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Sears, and members of the school board. The triennial wellness assessment is due June 30th, 2021, and has been posted to the Pulaski County website. The local wellness policy has been under review for several months. In recent years, food allergies and special dietary needs have become more prevalent with the student population. School nutrition and school nurses work together to ensure students with food allergies and special dietary needs are carefully documented with physician's notes. As a safeguard to prevent a student from consuming a food or beverage that would adversely affect them, alerts are programmed into our point-of-sale computerized system. Allergies that are most common in our school population are peanut and tree nuts, red dye, lactose intolerance, and other dairy items, fruits and vegetables.
We also have many students with special dietary needs. This includes our students who have diabetes. It includes students who have seizure disorders, students with celiac disease, that require gluten-free diets, and especially seizures. They use a special diet to control seizures, and any food that's not on that diet could cause a seizure. Just wanted you to know that 1 in 13 children have food allergies, and that's about 2 in every U.S. classroom. So that's why we feel like our policy needs to address the food allergies and special dietary needs of our students. And school nutrition and school nurses work together to do this.
Reviewing the local wellness policy with these concerns in mind, we are asking you to consider approving the local wellness policy with these changes. Parents, guardians will no longer be allowed to bring any food or beverage prepared at home to school for any celebrations or events. All food beverages must be individually prepackaged with a label listing all ingredients and meeting the USDA Smart Snacks in Schools guidelines. Food, including candy and beverages, will not be used in any classroom as a reward for academic or classroom performance. Birthday celebrations, we're encouraging alternate ways to celebrate these events that include activities without food or beverages brought in or sent to school. We're pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from Ms. Sadler and Ms. Hall? I'm sure we'll talk about it next month.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Next, Mr. Chairman, we have the ESBA policy updates, and those are available on board docs, and some of the changes that are also reflected in our policy for the proposed policy for the treatment of transgender students are, it references some of the changes that have to be made to the VSBA policies, and then the others are just minor changes to policies that are already in existence.
Right.
And we will have those as an action item next month.
Next month.
And then the final policy proposal is the policy for the treatment of transgender students. And this has been in the works for several months now. I do think it's worth mentioning that the timeline that the General Assembly handed down was that we were supposed to have had this before the end of 2020 and would have had 6 months to have worked to take the steps to make sure the implementation went well in Pulaski County, but that did not happen because COVID kind of pushed everything back. And VDOE, they had additional time, but our timeline never changed. We still have to enact a policy for the treatment of transgender students prior to the start of the next school year. And I think there was also some waiting to see how the Supreme Court decided in the Gavin Grimm case, because it could have implications on this. And if anyone was following that, the Supreme Court declined to hear that case today. So the transgender bathroom issue, at least for the area covered by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, it is a matter of law, and it's not, it is not negotiable for any locality to not follow the law. And anyway, this is the policy. We have made it available. We have created a survey link along with the policy that will be put out on our social media page and on the school division webpage tomorrow, so people who can't attend meetings and still want to provide feedback will have an opportunity to do so. And then we will have an opportunity as well this evening and at the meeting in August prior to the board taking action. There'll be an opportunity for public comment for anyone who would like to give input about this policy.
Any questions for the officers, any comments? The board's received a copy of the draft policy as well as Dr. Sears has mentioned, being made and will be made available on the school board website as well as on board docs. If there's no other questions, we will move ahead. That brings us to public comment. At this time, we will open public comment. We will allow 3 minutes for anyone that would like to address the board with ideas or concerns pertaining to Pulaski County Public Schools. I will say this, last month at our last meeting, I allowed 2 people actually to have additional time as their time was given to them by someone else. That I was quickly corrected after the meeting by our parliamentarian that that's not allowed actually in local government or with. But we will allow you to come and address the board. We will give you 3 minutes. We ask you not to go over the 3 minutes with any comments or concerns that you may have. So at this time, we will open public comment. If you would please state your name as you come forward.
Good evening. My name is Autumn Brooke Westenberry. Before I speak, here's some things you should probably know about me. I'm a 3rd grade teacher here at Pulaski County. I teach at Kreiser Elementary School. I've lived in Pulaski my whole life, and I've represented the county in a variety of settings, from bringing the high school's English MAC team from 7th to 1st place in division within 3 seasons, to singing as one of the first non-male tenors in the All Virginia Honors Chorus. I attended New River Community College and RU, graduating in 3 years with highest honors and a licensure to teach K through 6. The third thing you should know about me is I fall under the transgender umbrella. I'm non-binary, and this means that physiologically and socially I'm neither male or female. This initiative to help protect trans youth is important to me not only because I am trans, but because I know statistics. Trans youth attempt suicide at a rate of 35% compared to 8% out of average youth. 31% of trans youth experience sexual assault compared to 10% from the general population. 24% of trans students were threatened with violence at school compared to 5% of their peers. And 27% of transgender students felt unsafe going to school compared to 6% of their cisgender peers. This data is provided by the Trevor Project and was taken from over 100,000 high schools across multiple states for a more accurate picture of our country as a whole. Now, these numbers may seem shocking to you, but to me they're spot on. I say this because the first time that I heard about a trans teenager in 2014, I was hearing about her death. Layla Alcorn's birthday was a year and 9 days before mine, and she died at the age of 17. Upon her death, police discovered a suicide note stating that she killed herself because she knew she was a girl trapped in a boy's body and her family would never accept her for who she was. Her death sparked outrage within the community, and many took to social media with a new hashtag, #ProtectOurTransKids. Vigils were held all over the world to honor her life. At the time of Leela's death, I was incredibly wounded by her story. I've carried the same weight. In fact, I believe every trans child has carried this weight, being misgendered, dead-named, denied protection from harassment, and hearing of other trans youth's death. This pain is why I'm here today. I'm here to show the trans youth of Pulaski County that we do make it to adulthood, that we are successful, and that we are living fulfilled lives, and we have a voice in Pulaski County. So hello, and hello to all of you here. As for those of you that oppose this, I understand. I've been in your shoes. I was raised in the church, and I was raised that I was an abomination. 57 years ago, people said the same thing about integrating schools. So I'd like you all to keep that in mind. In closing, I address the school board. When this policy goes into place, please take into consideration the cost of medical care when you are determining the criteria for proof of transness. Not everyone can afford a doctor or a specialist or a therapist.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is David Bowman. I am a teacher in Pulaski County. I'm a special education teacher and case manager. I just want to say that my mandate in my current position includes ensuring that special needs students feel cared for, feel connected, and included in a typical school environment. These protections, however, should be extended to all students. Data previously presented to this board has proven that African American students have in fact been treated differently by this and other school systems historically. It is our obligation as educators to ensure that this inequitable treatment ends. The words of dozens of community members over the past few months has proven that LGBTQ+ students are also still viewed with suspicion, still viewed with bias against, and even some borderline threatened by some leaders in this county. On a personal note, as a believer myself, I have been deeply troubled by the way that some members of the faith community have articulated their opposition. I've spoken with families that have LGBTQ+ students, and it is heartbreaking how much they have been hurt by the words of the faith community. Ironically, the actions and words of some in this community have proven that additional protections are in fact needed and critically necessary for our transgender students. To the students of Pulaski County, the overwhelming majority of your teachers support you. They love you the way that you are, and we will fight for your rights against any and all inequitable treatment. Let me be clear to the students that are listening. We support you in your quest to determine your identity, your place in this world, and the human rights that should always come with that. I urge the board to pass the strongest, most equitable policy possible on behalf of transgender students, other LGBTQ+ students, African American students, and any other groups that need these protections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hello, I am a future teacher, and I came to speak to you and the community today on behalf of tired,
teachers. I can only imagine how the teachers of color must feel right now. I am going to reference the History SOL 1.10 for first graders in our public education system that was adopted in 2008. The student will apply the traits of a good citizen by focusing fair, exhibit good sportsmanship, helping others, treating others with respect, recognizing the purpose of rules and practicing self-control, working hard in school, taking responsibility for one's actions, and valuing honesty and truthfulness in oneself and others. This is equity. Our job as teachers is to teach the SOLs, and as a school board, your job is to make sure teachers are staying true to this curriculum, which are the SOLs. We have been teaching children to be citizens that embody equity for decades. Equity is not new, it is needed. For those in the faith community, you encouraged your congregation to threaten me and my teachers. You don't want me to read books such as The Giving Tree. If I am to ever be subjected to such violence in my classroom for wanting more for my students, I will make sure to let God know how I got before her and why you are not. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your support in equity and
Good evening. My name is Janet Jonas, and I'm a resident of the town of Pulaski. About 18 years ago, our church community welcomed a miracle baby into our congregation. Her two moms taught me all about how to be an ally and how to raise this young daughter, celebrating her birth, grieving when a later pregnancy failed, the fear that shielded her identity, and the fear of harm which eventually made them leave Virginia. The joy when they were married in the church, and now as they are adjusting to an empty nest. That was a different place, but it was in a different part of Virginia. I tell you this now because 15 years ago, when I decided to move to Pulaski County and announced my intention to teach in the middle schools this very building replaced, one of the moms hails from a neighboring county, and she applauded my choice because in her experience, Pulaski County has a reputation for being cutting edge in public education. This building is testimony to the dedication this board and its staff and the families have to bring the vision to fruition. The hard work this board has undertaken regarding this equity policy is the latest example of how this body puts its students first. We are blessed to have such a forward-thinking, hard-working, thoughtful, and respectful board. 15 years from now, I look forward to telling our many new residents how fortunate they are to live, work, learn, and play in Pulaski County, and how we put the students' health, well-being, and learning before all else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Good evening. Good to see you all tonight. Thank you for allowing me. I had made the observation that I was done with speeches and sermons, but then sometimes things come to light. I want to address the board just for a moment. And it's been said more than one time that many of you on the board are part of the faith-based community, and that certainly means we function and operate by the scripture. I haven't used a lot of scripture in my past speeches, but I do recall 3 young men who were told to bow to an idol, and they said, whether God delivers us or not, we're not going to bow. I remember reading in the book of Acts when they were told to quit preaching in the name of Jesus. And the apostles replied and they said, we ought to obey God rather than man. So while the pressure may be coming down intense from Richmond, the bottom line is we have a higher moral, spiritual authority that we all answer to. I want to share with you a couple of other things. Mr. Hurst, thank you for the invitation. Me and my staff can meet with you the other day. And I appreciate you sharing, I appreciate your transparency. But up until that moment, I had been led to believe that we would lose our funding. And you seem to indicate that that would not be the case if we rejected. I checked with my staff to confirm that you said that. And so, standing here, I know that it's not necessarily about finances. The second thing is that I've talked with former Senator Bill Carrico, and I know for a fact that there are other counties, including Grayson, that adopted a policy back in 2016 to keep things in place, and this is what they plan on turning into the Virginia Department of Education. And so to say that we have to go along to get along would be an error. To say that it's due to finances would be an error. The only thing I ask you to do is to seek your Lord. Seek God. What would God have you do? What would Jesus want you to do? I'm not against transgender students, contrary to what people have attacked me of being. I'm interested, and I've said this multiple times, in the safety of all students, transgender and non-transgender students. I think we open up Pandora's box, quite frankly. I've said it before, I'm more concerned about predators than I am transgender students. But I'm afraid people are going to take advantage of this. Evil is in the heart of people. It's in the heart of people. It doesn't matter what the lifestyle may be. If they want to do harm to one of our young people, one of our kids, it's in their heart to do it. And so I implore you, I plead with you, please, make it an item of prayer and make sure that your heart is good with God, that this is the right choice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Mike Coleman. I'm the pastor of Max Street Baptist Church in Draper, Virginia. I apologize for my dress. I heard about the meeting at the last minute. I was working in the yard. I was coming anyway. Alden, I want to commend you on all of your accomplishments in college and becoming a teacher here in Pulaski County. I'm proud of you. I was Alden's faith-based leader. There was never abomination placed on Alden or anybody else in our church or in our community because of the falsehood that they accepted in this progressive society, that they can feel like there's somebody trapped in another body. My Bible says in Romans chapter 1 that we've come to a day where we love the creature more than we do the Creator. The Creator made us man, the Creator made us woman, and the Bible says it is an abomination. And I would look at each one of you, including you, Dr. Sears, at your age, if you were to listen to this 50 years ago when you were in education, you would say that's an abomination. And I appreciate the young man before me just now that it's not a matter of funding. We are a small community, country folks. These people have elected y'all and the other people in this county to represent us. Yeah. I understand you have a few folks that want to go along with this, and I would love somebody to give me an adequate definition of transgender. I'm somebody trapped somewhere else. I don't understand that. And if we need any more programs in our system, it is to take them into some psychological training to figure out why they feel like they are somebody that they are not. And we love everybody in our church. We love everybody in the school system. I don't want any racism. I don't want any ill treatment given to anybody. But it is time for us once again to look at the Word of God and to look at who we are as a community and not a handful of folks. I want to tell you something. Every one of us have got something in our closet we're glad that never came out. And let me tell you, we need to live as a God-honoring people in this county. And Mr. Chairman, I know you are a man of faith. I know you are a leader in your church. And this don't even need prayer. It doesn't need prayer. It needs a biblical solution, and we do not hate anybody. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As you probably already know, I was part of a group who requested information through the FOIA for any and all information surrounding the equity plan. This FOIA request cost us $565 that we had to pay out of pocket, and everything received was printed on May 21st. However, those documents were held until June 6th to be given to us. Now, I understand that there is a review time that is allotted for these things. However, once the documents were received, there were numerous duplicates, and it seems as though the intent was to drown us in paperwork to deter us from getting the information we requested. It is the school board's assertion that there were no recordings of Zoom meetings, no minutes of those meetings, no handwritten notes from any member of that Equity Advisory Committee to allow insight as to how this plan was formulated and who were the driving forces behind this plan. It's also clear from doing a simple social media search of the members listed on the Equity Advisory Committee that most of them appear to be on one side of this. Same side as you, Dr. Sears. So it appears you picked an echo chamber for your committee. And however, you are somehow stunned that the opposing side won't get on board. Well, maybe that's because you didn't ask anyone from the opposing side what their concerns were. It baffles me that these meetings were held over a 7-month period and that there is nothing recorded or documented other than invites to those Zoom meetings. I've also recently discovered that there are at least 2 school districts in the regions 5 and 7 that are keeping their current policies in place and will not be implementing the model policy for the treatment of transgender students in their districts. Furthermore, I wanted to let the public know that I recently submitted another FOIA request for all communications between current school board members, our superintendent, and Mike Barber, who, by the way, is no longer a school board member. And I have been advised in order to receive those documents, I would have to pay in excess of $22,000 with an almost $5,600 deposit before they'll even start working on it. So much for being transparent. What are y'all trying to hide?
Hold on just a second, and stop our time. The charge is 50 cents a page.
It was 10 cents a page last month.
And Pulaski County Public Schools hadn't updated its price in how many years? If you go to the county administrator and you ask the county administrator, what do they charge for FOIA requests? They charge $1 a page plus their time. Now, we'll gladly charge you $1 a page if you would like, but they charge $1 a page plus their time. The court of Pulaski County they charge 50 cents if I'm not correct. So 50 cents is what they charge. So we're going to charge 50 cents plus the time of this gentleman and the time of those that work in the school board office, that we have to take their time away from their normal duties to handle that. It's a very fair charge. It's a very fair charge. The documents you requested amount to 40-some thousand pages.
Yes, they do.
40-some thousand pages is going to take an extraordinary amount of time. An extraordinary amount of time away from planning a curriculum for this coming school year and planning for this coming school year when we have suffered just a massive amount of instructional loss in the past year. In a school division that not only sent kids into the classroom more than any other school division nearby, but more than any other school division in the state of Virginia. So that's where our time is having to go right now. I can understand your frustration, but you're going to understand ours as well. Give her time back.
Absolutely. So again, even though that information is valid, it still feels like it's an attempt to deter us from getting the information. I'm not sure what you guys are so afraid of coming out. Furthermore, I feel an apology is owed to this community by you, Dr. Sears. The utter hatred you asserted in your emails to the Virginia Department of Education about the members of this community is appalling,
and your lack of remorse and unwillingness to apologize for the awful things you said speaks volumes. I know I'm not alone in calling for your resignation from your position tonight. You make decisions with no regard to how the community you serve feels about, and it's obvious now. Lastly, a question. Y'all uncomfortable yet?
Yes, ma'am.
I've stood before this board 3 times now. I've listened to the faith-based community be told that we're hate mongers, that we don't love the transgender students, that we don't have their well-being in mind. Well, I stand before you today as part of that faith-based community. When I was riding down the road with my 8-year-old today and was taking him to get a cast, my thoughts were not, what about my little 8-year-old boy that I have to explain to him why there's going to be a little girl in his bathroom? That wasn't my thought. My thought was, what about the transgender girl that walks into a bathroom with another boy who does not want her in there, and he treats her like a man? He does the things that Brooke talked about. I know you, Brooke. I went to church with you. I love you. I love your family. But you are asking me to be okay with this. I'm not okay with it because I don't want to explain it to my 7-year-old. I don't want to explain it to my 8-year-old. I don't want to explain it to my 9-year-old because that's not what they need to be learning about. That's right. Talk about learning loss. My 8-year-old is behind in reading. He missed 2020, but he also missed 2019 because his teacher was out. She was very sick. That's not her fault. But he did not have a constant teacher in 1st grade because of her illness. He did not have a constant because of COVID, and he's behind, and we're worried about this. There are better, I don't mean it that way. We need to worry about the transgender students. We need to worry about their safety. We don't need to be worrying about if they can go to the bathroom. There's bathrooms all over this building. They're all over this building. I'm angered because I get told that I hate you. I don't hate you.
That's right.
So yes, it angers me when somebody tells me they hate me. I hate them because you don't know me. You probably don't know half the people in this room. But I don't hate people, Dr. Sears.
Your time is up. Thank you.
My name is Randall Lawrence. I'm a father of 3 children who attended Pulaski schools. I'm a grandfather of 6 children presently that will be in grades K through 9. So we're attending Pulaski schools. I'm also a pastor. I've been pastoring 34 years in this community, Abundant Life Ministries. I want to preface my words by saying I'm not against anybody, any group. I love everybody. I preach the truth, and I try to speak the truth in love and practice Psalm 19:14, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found acceptable in your sight, O God, my strength and my redeemer. As a father, one of the meanings of father is he's a provider. Number two, he's a protector. One of the definitions of a pastor is he is one that feeds the sheep, leads the sheep, and protects the flock. I come as a father and as a pastor to you tonight. I'm standing here on behalf of fathers, grandfathers, pastors in this room who desire to protect the families, the children, congregations of this community from the radical agendas that are being propagated from Washington and Richmond. Unless the community of faith realize that there is an assault and an attack being waged against the family, our children, our grandchildren, and our enemies are being, the political and educational, using the political and educational system to infiltrate and indoctrinate our children with beliefs that are contrary to Scripture. Now, I, as a minister, have a responsibility for God to uphold the truth of Scripture. I realize that we're living in a day when some don't want to hear what God has to say. It's true. Scriptures speak today about truth. And in these days, men will resist the truth, turn their ears from the truth. Isaiah the prophet said there would come a day where they will call good evil and evil good. But it's only the truth that will set us free. The agenda of the transgender movement is part of a massive social engineering program, especially religious war, to destroy one of the most basic foundations of our culture, the family, and what it means to be a family. This war is being waged against the Christian faith. So I call upon each of you, the school board members, when you make your decision on transgender policy or any other policy that is not right or detrimental to our families in Pulaski, realize you're representing Pulaski County, not Richmond. I understand the law. You can't change the law, but the policies are under your jurisdiction to make. And remember, the school board work is not political work. It is community work. So we're serving Pulaski County. Right. What do the majority of our county want for our schools and children? I think you've heard that over the last 3 school board meetings. Who you want to listen to?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
Dr. Sears, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I appreciate you letting us all come here and speak to you one more time tonight. I'm sure we'll get to do it again soon. I appreciate that we have a board that knows what they're here for. A board that understands the laws, understands education, understands how to reach and teach children. I appreciate that I don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to waver on what's best. That I don't have to worry that our transgender students are going to be left lacking and unsafe because you guys have neglected your duty. I know that you won't do that. And I hope that our transgender students at home know that they are safe and they are cared for, and they have a board on the stage who's going to stand by them, regardless of the personal cost and the discomfort. If change is comfortable, it's not change. And I think we've seen in statistics and history that change is needed. I appreciate you guys.
Hi y'all, my name is Michaela Alley. I am a recent graduate of Pulaski County. Go Cougars, you know. I love this community. I've been a part of it forever. And I am also an ally of the LGBTQ+ community. I have grown up in the faith. I understand what love is and acceptance. And from seeing it, I have realized that just giving people the opportunity to be safe is not an attack. How can it be? People die over this. It is not an attack. When I was a freshman in high school, I became an ally to one of my very close friends who was transgender. During the course of the time that I knew them, and I still do know them, and they're doing very well now, but they've committed suicide at least 10 times. Their We have to. There is no other option. There's no way that we can see it from their side because we don't understand. I do not understand personally. But I could not even imagine someone being angry or trying to condemn me to somewhere for just wanting to be who I am. It's crazy. And when or if you guys end up approving this and putting these kids in an opportunity where they can feel safe for their mental health, you could use the new budget that was presented tonight as a part of preserving the mental health in our students and even building a new bathroom or new changing rooms for religious students who are uncomfortable with the fact that other people are interacting with them. The problem is the students that identify differently is the people that feel like it's an attack on them. Even if, like I said, I don't know any of these people personally, but I know that it's not an attack on them and their household just because they want to be loved and accepted. And that's where community really starts. So I think our community, especially in this middle school, this brand new middle school, should be one of love. And it should move all over the county. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm an alumni of Pulaski County High School and New River Community College, and I'm currently a senior at Tech. I came to this meeting because I heard about all these policies that are being decided in regards to safety and acceptance of transgender students in our public school system by providing safe spaces for them. Honestly, I am shocked that this is even an issue. I have never ever been threatened by someone else in a bathroom stall beside me based on their sex or gender. It is not uncommon in other countries for there to be shared sex bathrooms. In fact, there are many states that have passed the laws where people that are transgender can use the bathroom of their identified gender, and there have been no reported sexual assaults. None. Not in all 13 states. But you know that there are high sexual assault rates in all aspects of our country. So I'm not sure why this is being used as an excuse to prevent people from using restrooms or locker rooms. There should be an additional safe place provided for those that feel uncomfortable using a bathroom because they're transgender, or feel uncomfortable using a bathroom because there may be people that are transgender. These are public school systems with public people from all races, backgrounds, religions, and the teachings of one specific religion or church should not be used to dictate the public spaces for all people. There are many options for schooling, homeschooling, private schooling, public state school, and these are available to people that are uncomfortable. What's not available to people that are uncomfortable are separate facilities that are not gender mandated.
You gonna pay for it?
You had your chance to speak. Let this lady speak.
Suicide rates are shocking. They are shocking. And there's something we can do about it. And if that's a bathroom, why wouldn't we do it? I just cannot believe that this is even a question, especially if on a community that founds itself on the principles of love and compassion. We all have the opportunity to be who we are and stand for what we stand for and reflect those beliefs in our own lives. We do not have the right to reflect them on the lives of others, especially in law, especially in public schools. I know transgender people personally that are in the school system right now. What are we doing for them? Please vote to reflect that we support them.
Thank you for your time.
So, Chad Nash, I have, my oldest child right now is 5 years old, and she is one of 5 children. I'm just getting my feet wet here, but I have been on the internet. I've been, I've been on the internet. I'm reading this, that, and the other, trying to educate myself. One of the larger things that folks seem to be concerned with here, been taking a little notes. My first meeting is, and she touched on it, the safety of our children in the schools. As I have a 5-year-old, is there, and maybe can be answered if possible, has there been a plan or any thought to, well, let me back up. My understanding in reading this document is that teachers or staff are not allowed to ask or question a child should they be lying about their identity that day. Have we got any plan for that?
An FA frequently asked questions, bulletin was submitted itself. Yeah, so when we go ahead, well, where I'm answering this question, he's asking, last month.
Okay.
And someone, to answer that question, a young man can't come in today and say that today I identify as a male and tomorrow come in and say I identify as a female. So yeah, they do have to show consistently identifying based on the current recommended policy.
But it is accurate that a teacher or staff is not allowed to question any of that? Is that correct?
We actually, in the policy, we do have something about that, and I'll answer Chad if that's all right, because
Sure.
Chad and I used to work together. But yes, if a student is, if the teacher believes the student is using gender belief inappropriately, then it is in our policy to ask. Now, I know that there are some people who don't want that in there, but that is in our policy to ask. But it has to be a consistent and uniform assertion of the student's gender identity. It can't be, I play football on Friday night and I come in on Monday, and I'm a girl.
All students will have, should the board pass it, all students would have the right to request a private restroom. All students would have it. So I mean, the safety of all students. Excuse me?
We think we can make that
Yes.
available?
Yes.
Yes, that is in the works right now.
All right. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I have family in the LGBT community, very familiar, just from my personal standpoint, and my family's pretty tight. If I want my children, I want my children to figure out this process of the LGBT, gay, transgender, this, that, and the other thing, I feel very strongly that it would be within me, up to me and my family, my cousins. We want everybody to be treated fair, but that needs to be done, and it will be done on my time, not in the school system. If that becomes a problem, then if I decide I'm uncomfortable, I'll do what the young lady said, and I'll go find somewhere else. But I think you're going to lose a whole lot of people out of the school system if your definition is, if you're uncomfortable, find a private school.
Maybe those suicides right
I want to throw one more thing out there in regards to suicides. I know people as well, LGBT, that have been through difficult times and attempted suicide. Bless them. And we're coming out of a pandemic. You want to take the numbers. If you're going to go at it from that idea, the fact that we've had our children's masked for a year, look at those suicide numbers. That's a little different topic, but that's all I got.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I didn't plan to come and speak tonight, so I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous. My name is Amy Morris. I I'm a member of this community like everyone else represented. I have 3 sons that's been in the Pulaski County school system. Didn't have you, Vincent, but I know you from high school. I know you from you. I'm proud to say all 3 of them are honor students. One's a pre-med student at Virginia Tech. So I know what it means to have a good quality education, okay? And I'm proud that my boys have been able to have one. That saying, I've also worked in Pulaski County schools temporarily as a para, so I know what it's like to work hard as a para-educator. Most recently, or 3 years ago, before I went back to my job as a chemist, I worked in the Rapid City schools. I just want to put this out there that was one of the most frightening things for a new teacher to be told, hey, you've got 90 students, you've got 3 prep classes, an AP class on top of that, and you're going to have a transgender student, and get the pronouns right. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I love everybody just like everyone in here says. I don't think anybody's more important than anybody else. I promise that. But I didn't get the pronouns right all the time. I'm just going to be honest. My mind was thinking 10 different things. But Alex, and I'm going to refer to Alex as scientifically, I just see facts. I just see what I see. If it's red or gold, if it's a macromolecule, I just see what it is. Alex is born female. So I would say Alex, when she was getting ready to transfer schools, I wrote her note and said, God made you special, who you are. Embrace who you are. It was nothing judgmental. But I'm just saying that because you can love people of all types. You don't have to show judgment to anybody. And that's what I'm encouraging our schools continue to do. But I am saying this. Did I step over boundaries to try to make her feel extra special? Again, Alex is a female. I'm going to refer to her as she is. I didn't go out of my way because I just couldn't. I had 90 other students that were just as important as Alex. And I had students that were as my middle son, selective mutism has haunted him all his life. He has gotten through it, but he wouldn't even walk down the, graduation. He was a graduation marshal. He refused to participate because he's so shy, I guess. He just doesn't like being around people. Let's just be honest. But you know what? I'm just saying this because if my son was to go into a restroom, be it at school or anywhere else, and walks in there and sees somebody who's a female in there, he's going to hold his, he's going to hold it. He's not going to go to the bathroom the rest of the day. He will go all day without going to the bathroom. Does that matter to anybody else? I don't know. Biologically, I think he should feel free to go to the bathroom just as much as anybody. So the bathroom thing, this is my last thing, and I'm going to ask you real quick. If they're mandating this from state, why can't they provide the funding so that we don't have to, taxpayers aren't paying to make the bathrooms? So that's what I'm asking you.
I'm not talking to you. You just stole my telephone.
Mr. Chairman and school board officials, my name is Pastor Charlie Barbatini, taken to the streets ministry in Pulaski. And I've been here for the 3rd time. And I think it all boils down to this. When we look at these young kids, and I say young kids, I know some adults have already had their mind twisted as much as the young kids. And I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for them to think and even have that notion of the idea of believing that they could be born into someone else's body or that they're a different gender. I really feel sorry for anyone to get blinded that bad. But I want to tell you this. It all comes down to this. Do you all and me and everyone here, do we believe the Bible or do we not? I said no. But do we?
Please, this gentleman, he deserves his 3 minutes. Please.
Do we? Thank you, sir. Do we believe the Bible or do we not? Some 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ came and he walked this earth. And all he had was love and compassion, and he crucified and killed him. He said that his followers would be hated for his sake. And when we try to stand up and tell about our faith and try to save someone from going to hell and destruction, then we're saying that we come back and say, well, you're just a hate crime or you hate people. We don't hate them. We love them.
That's right.
And we care about them. And I want to say this to you. You all have a hard job. You got policies you got to enforce. You got people you got to please. But I want you to know something. The only one person that you really have to please, when you leave this world, the only one person you have to please is Jesus Christ. And every one of us, not only me, but everybody in here, every one of us is going to have to answer for our actions throughout our lifetime. God sent me here today to serve notice that no matter how you try to paint it up, no matter how you try to adopt it, no matter how you try to make it attractive, no matter what you do, it's still wrong.
Right.
And he said to tell you that he said 2,000 years ago that it's a sin. And a man is a man and a woman is a woman. He's not changed his mind. And I just want to leave you with this thought. To everyone that thinks just because someone gets up and tries to promote Jesus Christ, if they would really think how much we care about them, that all we're trying to do is save them from the devil's hell. Yes. God bless you all. Thank you.
Children, two who have graduated from Pulaski County High School. We both graduated from Pulaski County High School. We have a daughter who will be entering the 3rd grade at Kreitzer this year. And we have a 4-year-old who's entering the pre-K program this fall. I am a member of the faith-based community here in Pulaski, and I would like to state for the record that I do not find transgender individuals to be an abomination. I believe that they are loved equally by God. Yes. And I take no issues with their choices. I am becoming increasingly concerned about my child entering the 3rd grade, perhaps because I'm becoming concerned that her disagreement because of her faith will be seen as discrimination, when that is not what it is. And so I think in the spirit of equity, if we are talking about equality, what we are doing is creating one policy for one group of people. And in the spirit of equity, I think if we do that, then I would also like to see a policy, a model policy for the treatment of Christian students. I understand the impact that we are trying to have, but in creating a policy for one set of students, we are excluding and treating others unequally. And so I don't take as many issues. You know, a lot of people have said a lot of things that I don't take necessarily issues with. There are other things within the policy that concern me. As a parent, my right to know what's going on with my child. My 8-year-old is developing quickly. She already recognizes the differences between herself and other little girls her age. You know, and so we talk about those things and I try to help her through those things. But to know that if my child expresses an issue related to transgender, that I can't be made aware of that. There are other things in the policy that challenge my rights as a parent. And that is my concern here tonight. And I thank you so much for your time and for listening. You all have been very good over the many meetings that we've had in the past, and I'm so appreciative of the work that you all are doing. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Eve.
My name is Angie Edney, and I've lived in this community since 1996. Both of my parents grew up in the Pulaski County community.
I was not a Pulaski County student, but I raised two who were, and I'm married to another. I did not plan on speaking this evening, but there's, you know, one of the things that really bother me about being a person of faith is this misconception that you automatically hate people that are different than you. I don't hate anybody. I have a deep love for everybody. And when you look at different groups of people, we all, every one of us have things that make us different. My growing up was a lot different than others. I was in an area that was very, very heavily minority populated. I was actually a minority where I grew up and went to school. I was picked on, I was kicked, I had been thrown down, books knocked out of my hand. I went home crying more times than I could tell you. But with that, I learned that I have to take care of myself and defend myself. With that, I learned that there are people that are there for your safety and your protection. You can't start protecting every little individual groups and not expect there to be a division among all those people. The next thing, and most importantly, that I would like to say is my son, who did grow up and graduate Pulaski County, is a teacher in the not Pulaski County, but in the Virginia school system. He's an AD, head football coach. I have a sister who is a teacher in the system. My son's girlfriend is a teacher in the Virginia system. And instead of putting more on our teachers and administrators, why can't we let our teachers go back to doing their job, which is teaching the students?
Yeah, that's right.
They have spent the past year being social workers, medical technicians, on-screen entertainers at times, you know, trying to get their point across. These teachers have a deep concern for their students, deep concern. You know, I know for one, my sister, the countless tears she has cried when she's at home over the kids in her class that aren't eating, that aren't in safe environments at home. You know, it goes beyond the typical 9 to 3 thought process that a lot of people have. They need to stop being all of these things to everybody. We need to have our teachers going back to teaching and doing the job that they were trained to do, not be indoctrinators of every policy that comes down the line.
That's right.
When you're in public school, you're here to learn, and that's what our teachers need to be doing.
Thank you for your time.
My name's Ashley Bowman. I'm in the Maxey District. I think the board is pretty clear on my stance on this. I'm a member of the Equity Board. I'm a mom, and I've been active in this fight for the rights for our students. I support the right for fair and equal treatment of our LGBTQ plus students. I support the right for equal treatment of our Black and brown students, students with disability, and all the marginalized students in this district. I did want to say, if people weren't aware, the Supreme Court came down with a ruling today with Mr. Gavin Grimm saying that they did not need to take up an appeal for transgender students to be able to use the bathroom of their expressed gender because the lower courts had considered the issue and they reached the same conclusion, that treatment of transgender students differently violates a federal law known as Title VI that bans sex discrimination in school programs. So this is not just a local issue, it's not just a Richmond issue, this is a federal issue. They deserve fair and equal treatment. The problem with having a model policy for Christian students or white students is that they haven't been systemically oppressed and discriminated against. The point with having a policy is to protect these students that have been discriminated against. And also there's a reason why our school systems have separation between church and state. Woo! Yeah! You can take your students to private Christian schools, or you can homeschool them. There's a reason why there is a separation between church and state, and that's because you would not, I'm sure that many of the Christians in this room wouldn't want other religions being taught to our schools or other religions guiding our school practices. And I would also say I would like there to be a separation in church and state, even though I'm a Christian. I want our schools to treat our children all the same, and I want them to not be taught religion at school. Religion should be taught at home, and religion should be taught at church, and it should not be pushed at school. Thank you.
We have one more speaker that we would allow.
Good evening. My name is BJ Ratliff, and I, like some of the rest, really had zero plans on speaking this evening. Mr. Hurst, your granddaughter and my daughter got to go to school together this year at the Pulaski County at the high school with Miss Noble, and we thoroughly enjoy her and enjoy having her. I have, I guess, more of a question. Chad brought up the fact that this is his first one. He has a 5-year-old, and it hit me that I don't have a baby anymore, and I need to think about this, and it hit hard. So when he asked, or someone asked the question about utilizing the restrooms, you know, letting boys use the girls or whatever, and you're going to watch that. You know, they can ask at some point. You're looking for consistency there. So I have some friends that were teachers, and they had potty patrol this year, which makes me giggle a little bit, but I don't know what else you do. Is that going to continue? Are you going to continue potty patrol at every school function, not only to protect those that don't agree, but those that do agree? That if a trans individual goes into one of those bathrooms and they're targeted because Johnny can say, oh, today I'm a girl, and I'm going to go target this person who I think should be a boy but is using the girl's bathroom. Like, who's going to watch this and make sure they're protected if that's safety? Safety is my concern. So that's my question. Is the potty patrol going to continue?
Yeah, you know, when you say potty patrol, I don't actually know what you're referencing. I know the middle school and high school have people posted out in the hallways to make sure that distancing was maintained. You know, there were a lot of requirements around COVID that had to be enacted this year, and that also would limit the number of students who could go into a bathroom that had multiple facilities in it. But I mean, you know, we will look at being able to continue, you know, providing supervision in the hallway. I don't know that we're going to have someone standing outside of every bathroom, but with the, you know, trying to create a working definition of you know, what consistent, uniform presentation of the gender is something we will discuss, and we'll try to have, you know, some ideas to share with our counselors and our administrators and our teachers about, you know, how that will work. It's still fairly early in the process for developing the procedures, but we have some ideas that we're discussing, and hopefully when the policy is presented to the board in August for approval, we can discuss in more detail some of those procedures after we have a chance to meet with our administrators and meet with some of our teachers and try to figure out how all these pieces can work at each school.
But the policy is prepared to pass prior to knowing how you're going to do that exactly?
The policy has to be passed before the start of the school year by state code. We have to have a policy for the treatment of transgender students. And I understand that there are other school divisions that might be trying to take a different route, but we've also been advised by our attorney that, you know, they are not going to be in compliance with the law. If they choose to go a different route, they will be doing so in violation of the law, and then whatever, you know, ramifications come from that, you know, they are subject to have applied to them.
I guess in short, what I'm trying to say is, for protections of both sides, what's the, like, you're wanting to push this plan and pass it, there is zero protection on either side, for either party here, either side. I don't see a in stone, I'm going to send my kid to school and know that she is safe. I got, I mean, you know, the school door's locked now, so that's my, like,
PJ?
yes.
I've been out of high school about the same amount of time you have.
For different reasons.
For different reasons.
But anyway, I know that I know the restrooms at the high school, not only Pulaski County High School, but any high school you want to go to, are going to be used for other things other than what they're intended to be used for. It has always been that way, and it's probably going to always be that way. And for that reason, there will be teachers posted close to those bathrooms who will check those bathrooms periodically, several times over a period of class changes or during the times that students are allowed to come out of the commons area and mill around in the locker banks. When I was there, I would check those restrooms sometimes 5 or 6 times that 20 minutes in that period of time. I wasn't the only one checking them. Mr. King was checking those restrooms. Mr. Hoffman was checking those restrooms. So it was probably about a minute between the time that I would walk out and someone else would walk in. And I would assume that that's going to continue. And you're exactly right. We have to protect both sides. And if I have anything to do with it, that will be the case. Both sides will be protected.
Thank you. It's so much more than just the bathroom issue to me, but just sending a child to school these days today scares the living crap out of me. As a whole, there's not enough money to pay me to be a teacher, and that's what I wanted to do. And not for just this reason. I don't want you to think that at all. But I do treasure what you guys do. I don't envy any of you at all, not in and out. But I want you to think about safety for both sides. Both sides.
Certainly.
Safety it's safe.
Safety in school, safety to and from school, wherever. We want all children to be safe.
Yes.
And we will do everything in our power to see to it that that happens.
That's all I was looking for. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Just kind of a close couple of comments. We do want to thank you for your comments. This policy, the drafted policy is, and as we said, will be posted on the school board website. We also would encourage you to, if you have comments or if you have questions, concerns about the policy, that you can email the school board, your school board members. You can call your school board members. I've met with many folks individually over the last few weeks. I've answered and spoke with many folks that have emailed me over the last few weeks, as well as all of our school board members. So we still have work to do prior to the August meeting concerning the adoption of the policy. As was mentioned earlier, this is an extremely difficult decision, and it's one, honestly, that this board would have rather not dealt with. There's not a board member up here, if you would have asked them the question 3 months ago, 4 months ago, do you want to deal with the transgender issue of allowing kids to use certain restrooms and so forth? We've had transgender students in Pulaski County Public Schools for many years. Transgender students have used, in the past, have used private restrooms. We're going to make that available if it becomes policy. We're going to make that available to any child that requests that any child that requests that. The question that was just asked about the protection of any child. Nobody cares more about the protection of these children than the people sitting up here today, or that man right there. I will promise you that. And I know you care about your children. You know, and you have every right to ask the questions that you've asked. You have every right to voice your opinion. You have every right to do so, whether you agree or you disagree with the state law, with the law, and because that's what it is. It is the law. The Supreme Court today, as already has been mentioned, has said they will not hear this case. So understand that is the law. And there are ramifications for not obeying the law. You know, I would like to drive 100 mile an hour on the interstate if I felt like it. But they kind of frown on it. These deputies, you know, he's shaking his head in the back. And he's not as keen on it as I am. So, but it is the state law. We will do everything we can to protect every child in Pulaski County Public Schools. We always have. You know, Pulaski County Public Schools, I mentioned it at our last school board meeting. We have added cameras to the tune of, we've increased camera usage in our schools by 50% over the last several years. We have SRO officers in every school in Pulaski County, whereas just a couple of years ago, we only had 3 for all schools in Pulaski County. You know, we have an SRO officer in every school in Pulaski County. So nobody, as I said, is taking the protection of and the privacy rights of your children lightly. I'll promise you that. We certainly appreciate your comments tonight, and we welcome your calls or emails, and would be glad to meet with you individually if necessary. Be glad to do so. At this time, are there any other future agenda items requested by members of the school board? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming.